Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your guy Rudy SKC, and welcome to a brand new video. The Michigan Wolverines just took down number 9 Purdue last night in Chrysler 75 to 72 in an absolute thriller. And today, guys, I have an absolutely special episode with one of my best friends and also one of the biggest Michigan fans I know. Arv, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you, Ani?
Doing pretty solid. I mean, it's hard to be in bad spirits after a win like that. And I gotta ask you because you were actually at the game. I gotta ask you, kind of just walk me through the experience, the atmosphere. How was Chrysler?
Man, it was amazing. This is my second game of the season. First game was against Tarleton State, so definitely not the same experience, man. It was just incredible. The student section was going crazy. Danny Wolf said himself it was the loudest he's heard Michigan be all season. The team worked so hard, man. It was just an all-around performance. It was incredible to see.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of the things that, like, when you talk about the Michigan State rivalry, right? Like Chrysler versus the Breslin, that's a huge thing that we always talk about. And as much as I hate to say it, the Breslin, we've known that to be a special place. For as good as Michigan State has been at basketball over the last 2 decades, and it seemed like over the last 3 to 4 years, the magic of Chrysler was kind of gone. There was like a magical hum to it when in the prime years of Beeline's tenure here. And do you feel like that's starting to come back now with what Dusty May is doing?
Definitely. I think this is probably one of our, if not best, like most important games of the last 4 or 5 years. This is a really important game. Like analysts were saying before this game, we were probably going to be like a 5 seed in the March Madness tournament. I think easily we're going to be a 2, 3 seed if we keep playing the way we're playing right now. And just the culture is changing, man. Dusty May is an amazing head coach. I'm just so excited for the rest of the season.
And like you mentioned, with the loss Michigan State had last night, you beat Purdue. Michigan moves into sole control of the Big Ten currently. So, that's absolutely something crazy when you think about the season we had last year, where it was the worst season in school history, basically, to what we have now. Incredible turnaround by Dusty. So I want to transition now into kind of the game because this was a very weird game. Okay. This is a game where really your main options, right? Whether it's Danny Wolf, Vlad Golden, right? None of our main options are really going off. So how did Michigan manage to manufacture points, I guess, and get stops to win the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a really all around performance. Like you said, Purdue played a heck of a game. Their half court defense was incredible. Braden Smith, TKR, they played out of their minds. So the props to them, but I think we just had more grit. We never gave up. We were losing for the majority of the game, but we stayed in it, and especially down the stretch, we just showed who we are, man. Like, I mean, it was just amazing. Like, that's all I can say.
Yeah, and like what you just said, right? It's what happens down the stretch that kind of determines who ends up winning games, like especially in college, right? That's the way college works. That's the way college works. It's a game of runs, and then whoever is able to execute the best down the stretch, they're the ones who are able to win. And this is something we saw when we got into close games last year with Juwan Howard compared to now with Dusty May. You're seeing, like, I guess, progression from the team, even though the nucleus of the team is completely different. And there's something that I always say, and the viewers of the channel, you guys know this as well. In basketball, there's three main tenets you need to do to win a game in the modern NBA, right? You got to win the rebounding battle, you got to win the 3 point battle, and you got to win the turnover battle. Michigan loses the rebounding battle, the 3 point battle, and they tie in terms of turnovers. So this to me was just a complete team effort in terms of execution down the stretch because again, this is something that we're going to talk about as well, but you know, Michigan throughout the season, they've been getting in a ton of close games, but the way they've been getting in a ton of close games has been because they go up early and they kind of lax. They start having like 3, 4, 5 turnovers in a row, right? And then the other team gets back into the game. But today was kind of the opposite of that. So walk me through like what your thoughts are on that kind of dynamic kind of switching today.
I mean, yeah, like exactly like you said, like the prior games, we have a big lead, then a bunch of turnovers, and then we almost choke it, but we barely win through the game. And I still think that that's really important. Like you talked about in the past, when we had those close leads, we would always choke like every single time. It was probably the most frustrating thing about Michigan basketball. And obviously we need to stop like letting up those big leads. But I think the ability for us to win down the stretch, that's all I really care about, right? Getting the dub. Obviously, we don't want it to be that close, but we're still getting the dubs. And in pressure moments, like that's what really matters, especially in March Madness. And I mean, I think that's really important. And that's what I really like to see from this Michigan team.
Got you. And just going off that point, right? This is like we said, this is not the NBA. This is college basketball, right? These games, it's a it's win or lose, it's win or go home, basically, right? It's an elimination game every single game practically down the stretch when you get into March, right? We're in the midst of February. We're gonna eventually get into the Big Ten tournament and then the big dance. But seven of our last eight games, they've been within 5 points, and we've won five of the last six in that stretch, and they've all been close games. So do you think it's a good thing that they're building an acumen of being able to win these close games, or do you think that's a bad thing that's going to like end up biting Michigan? The fact that they're not able to close out they're basically not able to close out any teams with a big margin. Do you think that's going to come back to bite them in the long run?
I mean, I think it could potentially, but like, just from this game, I think we're improving. This is a really important game against Purdue, and we showed that we, even though we didn't have a big lead at any point in the game, we kept playing. We keep playing hard no matter what. And this like you said, we last of 7 of the last 8 games were within 5 points. Last season, we won 8 games in the entire season. So like, I mean, it's just a complete turnaround, and I think we need to continue to improve. Obviously, we don't want to be winning by like 3 points every single game, and I think it will get better. Turnovers are kind of inherent in this Dusty May system. Fast-paced offense, and it really hasn't got that much better. But I think this Purdue game, even though we had 11 turnovers, it really wasn't that type of game where you thought like turnovers were what was screwing us up. It was kind of Purdue was a really good team, and I think it was just competition and we played a really good game, and I think we'll continue to improve going on in this season.
So just to harp on that point, you do think that like Michigan can improve on the turnovers because like from where I'm sitting right now, like in college basketball, right? You basically are what you are as a team when you're approaching that like February March-ish stretch, right? And Michigan has been a team all year that's turned the ball over. And if they have to get on a kind of a streak right now, like we've seen the legendary Michigan teams of the past when it comes this time of year get on, do you think that that's going to be something that they are able to improve on the turnover specifically?
I think it's gonna be tough. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's been tough this season, but I think a lot of the turnovers are really silly mistakes. Like some of them I can understand, like 5, 6 turnovers a game, but a couple of them are just like, silly mistakes that I really think are things that we can turn around. And yeah, I mean, I definitely think we can improve on it. Obviously we don't have that much time until March turns around, but I have faith in Dustin Bay. I believe in the system. I think it can happen.
Okay, and this is another question that I want to ask because the last couple games and this game as well, when it's money time, Dusty May has elected to put the ball in the hands of Danny Wolf. Okay, and I want to know your thoughts on this. Do you think he's the right guy to put the ball to put the ball in hands in? Because we do have other shot creators on the team, right? Trey Donaldson, he can create shots for himself, right? Even like some of our wings, they can create shots, they can make shots. So do you think that Danny Wolf is that guy?
100%. I mean, Danny Wolf has to be that guy. Like, I mean, watching him in person, oh my God, he was so good. His ability to cover the floor, take it to the rim, his vision. I don't think he necessarily has to be the one to take the last shot, but he needs the ball in his hands in the last moments. And even if he doesn't take that shot, he'll find the right player to take the shot. I mean, the ball has to go through him no matter what. I mean, Trey's there too, of course. He's always an option, but I think the ball needs to go through Danny Wolf.
And that's actually a really important point that you mentioned. The fact that, yeah, when you're that guy down the stretch, that doesn't necessarily mean you take the last shot, right? That could mean that you facilitate something, you create some shot for someone else. And, for this Michigan team who has really not had like a 1A option to come in and say, alpha time, you give me the ball, I'm going to make something happen. For a Michigan team, for a Michigan fan base that hasn't had that guy in so long, maybe even since Mo Wagner, right? it's really important that we understand what that looks like now, and the fact that you may possibly have that guy. He scored some great buckets, driving to the rim in crunch time. He was able to draw some free throws. Obviously he had the one miss that got rebounded and put back in by Roddy Gale at the end, or was that Reuben Jones? I can't remember.
Ruben Jones, yeah, Ruben Jones, yeah.
Reuben Jones. Okay, yeah, yeah. So regardless of all those things, I definitely agree with the fact that he is the guy. And actually, speaking of Reuben Jones, so interesting lineup switch prior to this game, right? Instead of Roddy Gale, Dusty May elects to insert Reuben Jones into that starting lineup, and it kind of worked. So what were your thoughts on that when you were sitting at the game?
I mean, yeah, I think it worked. It was probably Ruben Jones' best game this season. I think defensively he played out of his mind. He's everywhere at all times. He's a great on-ball defender. That one crucial steal down the stretch, like that was basically almost won us the game, and that was huge. I think he should start honestly for the rest of the season. And I think honestly, Roddy Gale, he had a hell of a game too, heck of a game. Uh, and I think coming off the bench, he still adds that. He's been struggling for quite a while, and I think coming off the bench is going to be really great for him. He had a great game. I think 15 points, 8 assists, something like that. 14, 7, and 3, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned, right, for Reuben Jones, I think the thing that wasn't working in the previous games is for Roddy Gale specifically, yes, his main role on the team is as a slasher to the rim, right? That's what we've seen him be able to do. But on the perimeter, yes, we have length, right? We obviously have Danny Wolf, who I feel like the dude has like a 12-foot wingspan, right? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But you look at the other guys, right? Trey Donaldson, I mean, he could be a pest on the defensive side, but he's also small. Okay. And then Roddy Gale just was not getting the job done defensively. So now being able to insert a guy like Reuben Jones, who, maybe has not had the season that we were expecting when he transferred in, and he's not having the season that he expected either transferring in. Now he's able to have this opportunity to kind of be the defensive stopper. And in a game where you're going up against, Braden Smith and TKR and that pick and roll, I genuinely thought that he was doing a great job. If you look at a lot of Braden Smith's points, they were off switches. They weren't directly on Reuben Jones. And even the shots that he were making, they were not easy shots by any stretch of the imagination. So I think I definitely agree with the fact that that's something that Dusty May needs to consider sticking to for the long haul. And again, I hope it helps, Roddy Gale down the stretch as well off the bench. And speaking of the bench, right? Like the bench is where we have the main, the youth players of the team, right? We have the Justin Pippins, and one interesting player that we saw today was LJ Kaysen, right? And just like talk me through how you think LJ Kaysen can develop and make the offense still go smooth when Trey Donaldson isn't in the game.
I mean, yeah, I don't know too much about LJ Casey. I know he's a freshman on our team. He didn't have any minutes, I think, in the last 3 games. So just being able to be in the game and fitting in with the team, especially as a freshman, is incredible. It's definitely good for his confidence. Going forward under the Michigan program. And I think, can you tell me a little bit more? What do you think you saw from him in the game?
Yeah, I guess like the reason that I was bringing LJ Kaysen up was one of the things that we've struggled with, over the last 10 or 15 games is when Trey Donaldson isn't in the game, right? Danny Wolf is basically our primary creator. He's basically our primary ball handler, and I think that at that time, some of those times, that's when our offense stalls, right? Because Danny Wolf, he's great at shot creating in the half court. When you have to make him do that, over the entire court, right? All 96 feet across the entire court, that's going to create some problems. And that's natural. I mean, the guy's a 7-foot center, for God's sake. So I think that having LJ Kaysen in the game yesterday, he showed me something when he was in the game. He was driving to the rim. He was generating open looks for others. He was kicking out, and he kicked out some shots for Namari Burnett for some like humongous 3-pointers down the stretch, right? He was finding those guys. He got a pair of free throws, and yeah, the stats are not going to look gaudy, right? But when Trey Donaldson is in the game, or if Trey Donaldson is in foul trouble at times, right? You need to know that you have some guy in the background who's going to be able to come in and, at least not be a liability in those minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree. I want to talk a little bit about Namari Burnett as well. I mean, he is such a solid player. Like he hits the shots that I think he really struggled last year, and I think he's kind of come into his way this season as somewhat of as a role player. You know, he hits the shots that he needs to hit. He plays hard on defense. He's aggressive. He's intensive. You know, he's low key like my ideal Michigan player. You know, he does what he needs to do. He reminds me a little bit, not really. Remember Chandy Brown on that on the.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
reminds me of him. You know, he hits the shots that he needs to hit. He's such a solid player. I really like him.
And the thing is, he comes in and he plays great defense on the wing as well. So you have the combination of Namari Burnett and Reuben Jones on the perimeter guarding teams. Like I think that's like especially when you get into a zone defense at times in the game, right? I think that's really going to allow them to help off the ball onto shooters and back so that they can prevent teams from doing any damage. And I'm really excited to see how the zone defense and I guess also like the on ball pressure looks like in future games. But the other aspect I want to add on Amari Burnett coming in is you're talking about him as a 3-point shooter, but when he transferred in from Alabama, right?
Yeah, Alabama, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Alabama. He came in and I believe he was shooting, 32, 33% from the 3-point line. For him to come in and now be probably, I'm guessing, outside of maybe Trey Donaldson, the best pure 3-point shooter on the team, and for him to be able to come and make the big shots down the stretch, I think that just goes to show how much he's evolved over his time at Michigan. And again, it goes to the development that's gone on with the players like individually themselves since last year. So just absolutely huge by him. And I kind of want to, wrap up this with this, right? So Michigan, after this past game against Purdue, right? 6-3 in quad one games, 5-2 in quad two games, 7-0 in quad three games, 1-0 in quad four games. Okay. They have rivalry games against OSU and MSU coming up. What are the main things that you're looking to see out of this team so they can look to be successful? Because they're basically locked in for the tournament. Right now, we're fighting to basically win the Big Ten, and we have some huge games, right? We have MSU twice. We have MSU at the Chrysler and then at the Breslin later in the year. So, what are your kind of keys for Michigan to continue this momentum?
I mean, yeah, like we talked about, obviously there's going to be things like limit turnovers, you know, get those rebounds. But I think like the fundamental thing is keep playing hard. I mean, they played so hard against Purdue this game, and I want to see that energy, you know, transfer over to all these games. Don't give up. I feel like in the past, like when we let those leads up, there was just like a lack of energy in the team. Like something about it, like in the beginning of the season, you know, I kind of felt that energy in the Michigan team, and something midway, you know, it was a little rough to watch a little bit, but I think I'm seeing it back, and I really want them to just keep being passionate, keep playing their game, and man, it's gonna be exciting games. Ohio State, Michigan State again. It's gonna be a fun season.
Yeah, dude, and I have to try to get to the Michigan State game at the Chrysler. I know, like I was trying to get to the Purdue game, and then I had something else pop up. But yeah, absolutely, dude, that Michigan State game has to be a go. And hopefully, for your guys' sake, we can get some videos and recordings from the Chrysler and just show you with a firsthand experience how packed it is.
Yes, sir. I'll see you there, Ani.
Yeah, see you, man. For all you guys out there, Michigan dominating performance. Dusty wins first major victory against a top 10 team. Michigan, they're going to be taking on OSU next. So until then, I'll see you guys later. Peace out.